He is the CEO for Massy Gas, and Rohan will be joining me in this series today. The session, of course, we're discussing how to add value in leading your organization through transformation. Because we recognize over the last couple of weeks since the unsettled position because of COVID that we might have to make a few shifts in our lives, in our departments, in our organizations, those places that we serve. And we thought we'd look at a number of principles or steps or just some, what I call some to-dos that would work in transforming our organizations. We only have an hour, so we know we're going to give you some, what we call um, bones, but with some meat added by Rohan as we go along. But what's important is that this can be used in your personal life, your homes, your departments, your organization. I would call them kind of universal principles. So let us look at some of those steps that I think are good for us in transforming our organizations or departments. And you can send in your questions. We're looking forward to receiving them. We'll take them at intervals or as soon as I'm finished presenting. And Rohan is going to come in as well. So we're going to have a really interactive session. Our first step is looking at appointing a transition team. Why do we appoint a team? Because without a team, people are going to feel left out. And you want to include all the people that are part of the portfolio and people you believe that are going to help to make that move for you. People you want to work with in the future, people you want to work with now, people are going to add some value. The other step we're looking at is reassuring yourself and your team consistently. Because quite often this is a breakdown in the system where we put a team together, we say we know what's right, but we haven't reassured the team consistently about what are the expectations, how are we going to get there, what are the proposed plans, or just to find out how the team is doing, how do they feel about this new dispensation. And as leaders, of course, yes, we lead, but sometimes we don't lead with the understanding that our teams are part of the process and we need to engage them. The other step we'd look at is working on the review. Because the reason why you have this team is to review your processes and review the systems that you have, and to make a shift. It could be a big shift, could be a small shift, but the reality is that we're going to need some review of where we are, what we have, and how things are going. The other area we would want to look at is creating and communicating the plan. What is the plan that we have? This review should come up with a plan. So it's important that we communicate the plan. It's very important that we communicate this plan. The other area that I'd look at is to assess the skills of our team. What kind of skill sets do we need now, for the next 5 years, next 10 years, or maybe just for the next year in looking at this transformation, because we need to see how long is this transformation planned for. The other area is developing the talent, because developing talent is something that we're very short on. Yes, we have team members, but we're not developing talent based on the vision of the organization and the strategy. We have to engage the team, of course. Very often we have people on our team, they're not properly engaged, they don't understand what is supposed to be happening. They don't understand why it's happening or why we need to do what we're doing. And of course, if you're going to be in any review, you probably have to change systems, shut down maybe some services, look at how is it that you're working. You might launch new systems, processes, and services. So we want to understand that in any review, it's not necessarily business as usual. In some cases, you're going to confirm what is there and you're going to continue. In other cases, you might decide to come out of a particular line of product, a particular service. In some areas, you might want to enhance the services. Right now, so many of us are engaged in online services, work, and we're looking at new ways of working. Engaging the client is also extremely important because our clients are our backbone next to our team members. So our clients need to know who we are, where we're going, and and they need to be part of the process. The external relationships. Who are our external partners? Government, other private sector. Who are they? That's very important in any transformation. And of course, managing the change. Because quite often we believe that we're going to change something, we're just going to do it. People will understand. People need to understand. But that's not how change works. Most people are fearful of change, and they're fear it because they don't understand it and it hasn't been managed well. And of course, we need to always celebrate the successes, and we need to measure what we have done. Did it work? Could we have tweaked it? Are we on the right track? But measurement and celebration are very, very important to any process. And I'm going to ask Rohan to just come in and take a deeper dive and add some meat to the bones that I have put together. So Rohan, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jackie. It's a joy to be with you. And I commend the you and the team from Make Your Mark Consultants for this initiative. I think this conversation is obviously an important one. And in light of all that is happening, this idea of transformation deserves a lot of reflection. I like the 12 steps that you outlined, Jackie, and I want to comment on a couple of them. You know, when you spoke about setting up the team, but I like the idea, the point after that, where you said you need to reassure yourself and team. Part of what I recognize now, and it's a genuine issue for leaders to consider, is that there's a lot of doubt, there is a lot of fear, there is a lot of emotional storm happening. And part of what leaders have to do is to have the emotional connection with their teams so that they know and as it were, can feel what the team is feeling. And leaders should do as much as they can to reach out to others. But as you rightly said, Jackie, you cannot reassure others if you're not first reassuring yourself. You know, sometimes as leaders, we make the mistake of attempting to serve from an empty cup. And I think it's an important point that we as leaders, whether it's a departmental leader, an organizational leader, wherever you lead in an organization, it's important to understand that people are looking to you, but it's also important to ensure that you keep feeding yourself. And whatever your routine is to feed yourself, that's very, very critical, you know. If you lose it emotionally, people are going to pick up on that, and that can cause all kinds of inadvertent effect in the organization. So that idea of reassuring the team is important. I share this with you. One of the things I sought to do at the company I lead,
Massy Jamaica, we trade under the brand Gas Pro, is that we have said we want to be giving almost daily encouragement, not heavy stuff, but just reminders of who we are, just to reassure persons. And this doesn't happen just after, not necessarily after the crisis, but even during the crisis. I think that idea of reassuring self and team is absolutely powerful. The other point, and again, all the points are powerful. I thought about, there's a book, Jackie, I don't know if you know.
There's a book written by a guy called Larry Bossidy and Ramcharan, a book called Execution. When I heard you talk about reviewing the plan and looking at the plan and creating the plan, part of what you want to do is to make sure you have a robust plan. You know, a robust plan built out of deep debate, deep consultation, and genuine consensus among the team members that says, this is what is best for us, this is what we need to do, and there's a genuine understanding by all involved that we can come through this together.
Yes, Rohan, that's extremely important. I have a question here. What can we expect from most organizations in regards to laying off of workers? Most organizations should have a policy with regards to how workers would be treated in layoffs. If you don't have a policy on that, there's also the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and they are able to advise you because they're government guidelines, they're the labor laws. So the labor laws are the minimum, and of course, organizations can provide greater than the labor laws. So I would suggest that you look at your policies and procedures. What do they say? If they are not better than the current labor laws, you need to refer to the labor laws, which you can just call the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. And of course, it all depends on the relationship you have with your own employees, because these are times that we are new times, call for different kinds of discussions. And I would think that most employers are responsible, and they would be discussing with the employees as to exactly what it is when we're talking about layoffs. So I hope I have answered that question for for our for our the person who had asked it earlier. But I just want to pick up on what Rohan was speaking about earlier. He spoke about reassuring yourself as leaders. And next week we'll be looking at that. How do you work and lead when you're concerned for yourself as a leader? We know that is of great concern at this time. How do leaders lead? Being concerned for themselves. Maybe it's about losing their jobs. Maybe it's about just how you're going to lead differently. You have maybe resource issues. You might be able to come off of the system. So those are things that we can look at next week. And Rohan, you want to just pick up from where you left off and where we were a while ago?
Absolutely. As I listened to you, Jackie, and I don't know if somehow I was hearing you all along. The idea, I want to make a point about mindset, Jackie, because I feel that even as we think about all the hardcore things that may be necessary as a response, one of the things that I feel is important in the process of transformation is transforming mindset. Sometimes we talk so much about mindset that people feel it is overdone, but I don't think it can be, mentioned enough, because as much as you do with the hardware, if you don't take care of the software, you will not get the kind of result that you want. I remember reading a guy called David Allen, and he speaks about the idea of the mind like water. And the idea is that people in organizations need to have the capacity to respond to challenges. Part of what I am conscious of at Gaspro, Jackie, is that as I interact with persons, all of us are human beings and therefore facing challenges. But I think part of what we face in this time is that we cannot allow this crisis to be wasted. In other words, we have to strengthen our mental muscles, because in order to bring transformation, you have to think differently. I think it was Kobe that says you cannot talk yourself out of something that you behaved yourself into. And you really can't get behavior change without mindset change. I believe that we are going to have to function very, very differently than we used to function in pre-COVID world. We have to become a lot more efficient. We have to become a lot more focused. Some of our approaches, in the Jamaican context, productivity has always been a challenge. Those things must become a thing of the past, and we have to train ourselves mentally and emotionally to be much stronger in terms of our own productive capabilities. Again, while we have no control over what happens in the world, we have control over how we respond to it. And I think how we train our mind and bolster our minds is going to be an important part of that.
Correct.
And that idea of developing talent, because sometimes, Jackie, we spend a lot of time training people on technical skills, and we train people on how to be a good accountant and how to be a good engineer. But very often there are very few people who go for training, in terms of strengthening mind and having emotional intelligence. And the truth is, those capabilities, those talents, those skill sets will become far more important in the new dispensation. Indeed, I feel some of those things will have to really take a fresh look on how we develop talent. We're going to have to focus on some of those things that we may not have focused on sufficiently, because your technical capacity, as good as you are, will not be sufficient for the new world. And I feel, one of the things that organizations have to do now, leaders, HR leaders, departmental leaders and managers, must start asking themselves, one, how do we start to upskill our team in relation to these kinds of skills? Emotional intelligence is something we talk about a lot, but many
Mm-hmm.
persons still have not grasped sufficiently. Many persons
Yeah.
have grasped what that really means and how
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness and self-regulation and empathy
Mm-hmm.
can enable
Yeah.
you to be a powerful executive or a better
Yeah.
salesperson or a better accountant or a better payables clerk. All of
Mm-hmm.
those things. If all you have is the technical knowledge but don't have these
Mm-hmm.
skills, you're going to have a challenge. There are people crumbling now simply
Yeah.
because they have not spent enough time to invest in their emotional strength and their resilience.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Rohan, because many of our leaders need coaches. Because we all have deficiencies, we all have areas that we didn't zero in on. As you said, we spend a lot of time on the technical issues, and you have a degree or a master's and so on. But we're talking about the other areas you've mentioned, and many of us, we need coaches, and we need that constant contact with somebody else who is what we call, they'll look at your blind spots. They'll see the
Absolutely.
blind spots and they're able to help you iron through those blind spots, because as leaders, transformation of your department or your home or your organization, unless you yourself are fit. And fit means that you have also recognized your weaknesses and your blind spots, because if you don't, your team will. And if your team sees that you have blind spots and you're not working on them, you won't necessarily have the kind of buy-in that you need for transformation.
Absolutely, Jackie. You really can't transform anything unless you
Mhm.
yourself were transformed. And you're right.
Mhm.
No man is an island. In fact,
Mhm.
I was speaking to a major executive, and he says, for all his life, he has had
Mhm.
coaches. For most of his executive life, he has not been without a coach. And
Mhm.
it's a serious point, because
Mhm.
in our journey of seeking to offer leadership to
Mhm.
others.
Yeah, and even if you don't have a coach, a mentor, I think is very important, because so many of us who leaders, many of them can tell you about the persons they've had over the years as mentors and what the mentors have done for their lives. You speak of our Danny Williams, said he has mentored so many, and there's so many young leaders today who will tell you what an our Danny Williams has done for them, how he has shown them the way, exchanged his own issues and learnings over time. So mentorship, coaching, anything along that line is important for a leader to walk through any transformation. Because for you to walk through a transformation effectively, you're going to have to get yourself ready for it. Rohan also spoke about the assessing the skills. And I think the skills assessment is an area that we are lacking in, because we assume that if somebody has maybe a degree, that they are ready for the job and they are going to be trainable. Um, so looking at the new dispensation, new organization, the new services that we might want to engage in, what skill sets do we need? Do the people we have the skills? Are they going to be able to do the job? If not, what do we need to do with that team? Are they going to be trainable? Do we need to bring in new skills? Do we need to upskill? Do we need to rotate? Do we need to move people into new departments? But the reality is that we need to have a proper skills assessment of of the organization, the department. And as I said, this also applies to your personal life, because our personal life, we have to look, what do we have as whether it's parents, so many of us now um, are working with children at home, and they're required to do so many things they never thought they would do. And today, somebody was telling me that she has her granddaughter, and she has to be downloading and uploading and working on projects with a 4-year-old. So, what does it mean for us to upskill what we have and to learn new things? The talent development is very advanced in some organizations. I found they have strategies that work, strategies that they continue to aligned with the vision and the mission of the organization. But of course, there are those organizations that are not developing talent the way they should. And developing talent is not just training, not selling people that's a training course. It's looking at what you need. What does the employee need in order to fulfill the goals, objectives of the particular job and for the organization? So, how are we looking at our talent development? Do we have a strategy? And a strategy if you have a group of companies, it's not necessarily for the whole group. You need to break it down by department, division, by organization. So, your talent strategy is extremely important to guide how you're going to develop the talent in your organization. Um, Engaging our team. How well do we engage our team as leaders? And what does team engagement mean? We need to ask ourselves when we say we engage our team, what does that mean? Is it going to be a meeting every week? Do we have uh, as we are all online now, how often do we have these kinds of meetings? What are the meetings about? What are the meetings driven by? Do our team even understand why we're meeting? How do they want to be engaged? Do we do that kind of assessment? How our team needs to be engaged? Because all teams are different, organizations differ, services differ. A 50-year-old organization as opposed to a 10-year-old organization, the engagement strategy would be different. The skill sets of the organization, depending on the kind of business that you have, your engagement strategy would be different. Where do you want to move your organization? If you're transforming, if you're closing a department or you're opening a new one, how do you engage your team around these new strategies? So you want to look at a process for engaging the team throughout, from the beginning to the end of the transformation. And it's always good to appoint somebody for this. So, Rohan, you want to jump in?
Absolutely, Jackie, and I, those comments you just made about process is important. I like to say that engagement needs to be systemic and it needs to be systematic. It needs to be systemic and it needs to be systematic. When we talk about systemic, you need to have a system that allows engagement to occur. When we talk about engagement, we're talking about the capacity of the organization, Jackie, to inspire its members to be able to give what we call discretionary effort. So that engagement is not just about being able to have a meeting. It's about how those meetings translate into developing your people, so much so that they're willing to give effort above and beyond what is normal and average. And the truth is, as why that may sound simple, that's not something that happens, by snapping your finger. In order to get people to that place, it requires deep thought, and part of it must begin with understanding your people. Because the truth is, if I do not know my direct reports well, and I have no clue what caused them to feel energized, then I may be de-energizing my people rather than energizing my people. And particularly in a time like this, and as we go through what will be, in the aftermath of this, very, very serious economic times. The IMF is projecting, Jackie, that the Jamaican economy may decline by 5.6%.
Yes.
Our desire to grow by 5% by 2020 has turned into us going in the opposite direction by virtue of crisis. And again, when the economy gets smaller and the opportunities get less, there is no way we're going to be able to survive and do well in that context unless all our team members are fired up. And that's not a simple job. That's a hard job. And as you rightly said, Jack, part of what I would advise organizations to do, and the leadership of organizations to do, is to think about that in a very, not only systemic, but systematic way. What am I going to do from 1 to 5 in a very concrete way with concrete steps. Because again, this is no small work. This is no small job.
Yeah.
People and the people who lead are the ones that are going to allow us to win in the marketplace. So engaging them is absolutely important and cannot be overemphasized. So the idea of and after that you mentioned the issue of launching the systems.
Right.
The point there too is that you must have a system to engage your team.
Yeah.
I feel that sometimes organizations spend a lot of time thinking about technological changes, thinking about hardware changes, but we
Mm-hmm.
do not think sufficiently about people change. And
Mm-hmm.
by people change, I don't just mean different people, but I also mean people being different. I think
Right.
there's an opportunity for us to think about our strategic plan, to think about
Right.
our operational plan, but to also have a people plan. And
Right.
sometimes people have all kinds of fancy charts and all kinds of fancy plans, but do not
Mm-hmm.
contemplate how the
Right.
people fit
Yeah.
into that plan. And I feel Jackie that you as a with an HR kind of background and those even business leaders must strengthen
Yes.
their people leadership capabilities. Because you can be
Yes.
excellent with the numbers, you can be
Yes.
excellent with marketing, but if you don't get the people part right, you're going to have a challenge because there's people that will get the job done ultimately.
Yes. We have a question here asking how do we get our team members to go above and beyond in a crisis like this? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, excellent question, and clearly, Jackie, there is no snap of the finger, there is no waving of any magic wand. I think the issue of treating people like people.
Yes, we're discussing the how do we get our team members to engage in a crisis to go above and beyond. Um, First of all, we need to be very transparent with them. We need to be very clear as to where we are, what do we have, where are we as a nation, as an organization, and we need to, as leaders, because I'm assuming you're speaking about from a perspective as a leader, how do you engage, how do you beyond? It's about communication. If people believe that you're being transparent, people believe that you're being honest with them, and they're used to you sharing information and communicating along the way, then it's much easier. If it's a case where you have not communicating as easy, then what I would do is just have a discussion with all the team members, letting them know that we are in difficult times. We are likely to lose X amount of money if you're in a profit business. What are the numbers going to be looking like? Are we losing sales? What the loss of sales? What kind of impact would that have on the organization, the income, and if you are a NGO or an organization that is not necessarily interested in that, you still need to be level with the employees. Where would your funding normally come from, and where is that funding? How is that funding going to be affected now? How is the funding going to affect the kind of income and workflow? And if they have any ideas as to how it is that they can change or bring an impact to the organization at this time, ideas. What kind of ideas do they have? You want to be motivating them with things that you probably didn't do in the past, even though you're maybe leading from a distance and they're not in the office. You can have an online pizza party. You can have online, uh, you don't want to use the word latte these days, but you're going to have something that it is as if they're all together. So you're going to have weekly motivational sessions that they're going to be looking at. You're going to ask people to exchange their own personal issues, maybe offline. You're going to appoint somebody who's going to be what we call the yes. We were saying that you want to have your team understanding exactly where you are, because if they don't know where you are and what the repercussions are, if you think that they do, but maybe they're demotivated, maybe they're depressed about what is happening around, you have to as point persons who are able to motivate. Because in any team, you have some people who are genuinely motivators and positive people. So you want to bring those people into a circle, and you probably appoint different team are going to keep the needle moving, and they're going to give you feedback as to what's happening in the team at all times, and that feedback will drive what decisions you make, because the decisions that we make are very important at this time as to whether we engage people. Because some people, even though we believe that they want to stay in a job, it might also say to them they don't want to stay with this organization anymore. What I've also found that works, especially with online meetings, is that um, you have to have what we call uh, reporting, so people know to expect uh, online relationship, because people, we're used to being around people. So they want to know that at 8 o'clock we're getting together, at 10 o'clock, at 12 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, and the constant communication is very, very important. And you want to give them information as well. What is happening with maybe your counterparts? How are your competitors doing it? Sometimes you want to engage your competitor. What are you doing to keep your team in motivated? Because at this time I know a lot of competitors are working together because it's for the good of the nation, and when we all rise, then it's better for all of us. And the other thing you want to do is document. And somebody said to me last week, she leads a number of teams in the region, and what she does is speak with a number of them offline, um, because she tries to keep a tab on their how they're feeling, how they're looking, and that's important for you as a leader, keeping a tab on your people. The face to face, if you don't speak to them on the phone, you should be doing it live and seeing their face, and measuring their emotions at this time, and giving that kind of freedom. And they should feel that they're able to speak with you and exchange their own issues. And you might want to, of course, keep a tab on how their family is doing. It's not only about the team member, it's about the family. The family is important to them, and they're alone. Some people are having family with them for the first time, or they haven't been together for this length of time at any time in their lives. So it's also a challenge and very for them. So Rohan, I don't know if you want to comment on this.
Absolutely. That point about checking in on people's family. There's a saying that people don't care how much you know until they
Yeah.
know how much you care.
Yeah.
The idea of people knowing that you care must be at the forefront of what you
Yeah.
do. And persons must be convinced that you're genuinely concerned about them, their
Right.
well-being, and their families, and that's going to be important. Jackie, as I listen to you talk about the reality of online meetings, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about how unpredictable online can be. But
Yeah.
even as we work through that and adjust to this new normal, I think you are right. We're going to have to put a lot more effort in managing our teams remotely, and in the midst of having challenges. I am here with you, Jackie, and sometimes I'm not even sure if I'm on or off. But the
Yeah.
important thing is to make sure that people know that
Yeah.
beyond all that is happening, there is a
Yeah.
genuine concern and there's a genuine connection, and we have to spend a
Yeah.
lot of time to invest in that. That while we cannot connect with each other as we
And Rohan seems to be tripping in and out. You seem to be having some technical difficulties, but we are going to get through this, and nothing is going to stop us. Continue with the transformation, because we're looking at engaging our clients. How do we engage the clients? Because many of our clients, some are out of business, some are in transition as well. So they need to be a part of this transformation if we're looking at taking our organization, our departments to a different level. Because if we're going to be losing clients, or we're not going to be providing particular services anymore, then we need to say to our clients, this is where we are. If we want to be looking at new services, how do we engage these clients with these new services that we plan to provide? And why are we providing these services? we need to be looking at surveying the clients that we have. How have we been doing? What do we need to do to improve that? Is there anything new that we can give to them at this time that we were not doing before? How do they see their business in the next couple of years? So a survey among our clients, whether it's online, whether it's well, face to face is difficult at this time, but engaging our clients to let them know if we're having difficulties, we're either we're closed down or we're slowing down at this time. But in any transformation, the clients are next door team members and of course our shareholders. So the external relationships continue because the clients are part of our external relationships. But apart from the clientele, or who are our other partners in this external relationship? We're talking about our government. We're talking about our international partners. We're talking about NGOs. We're talking about so many other. We're talking about charities. How do they help in the transformation of what we do? How are they going to guide what we do as in the transformation? Because our team members are looking at how we interact with the external party. In most organizations are highly regarded. It is because of how they treat with external parties, whether it be charities, homes, religious organizations. There are so many things that we need to look at to make this a better way of working. Rohan, are you there?
I'm here, Jackie. You know, I heard a story. I was speaking to somebody overseas recently. This person lives in Tennessee, and he remarked about getting a call from a bank, and how that conversation was simply asking him how he was doing. And he was saying that he was so excited to have received a call like that, and really made a lot of reports to his wife about feeling very positive about that. You know, I want to make the comment in relation to the engagement with external parties. I think in the same way that we need to show our team members that we care, we also need to show clients and other stakeholders that we're thinking about them as well. You know, that's a vital thing to do as well. For example, one of the things we have done in our organization is make some of those calls. Clearly, you want to collect money that is owed to you. Clearly, you want to negotiate deals. But an important thing to do is to make your partners, your clients, your customers know that you are there for them, you're thinking about them, and that you care about them. I don't think that can be overemphasized, Jackie, and I think that's an important part of bringing transformation, because so much of our business has become very mechanical, and sometimes rather than pursuing win-win, we pursue win-lose. And I think there's a fresh opportunity to transform our mindset and to approach business relationships from a standpoint of being able to create win-wins. And you're right, Jackie. Even beyond the usual stakeholders, you know, now you have to extend hands to other organizations who are just serving people. You know, churches and charities, because again, they are serving the same customers you are serving. And right now, people need food, they need gas, certainly, but they also need support and they need guidance. And we have to have what you could call a multi-sectoral, multi-organizational approach to the crisis. I see a question here, Jackie, that I want to mention, where somebody was saying, in addition to having coaches and mentors, there's perhaps a lot of value in accountability partners. And I thought so even peers who can make sure that, you know, when you're feeling down and feeling distressed, that they can tap you on the shoulder and say, you know, there is life after COVID. They can tap you on the shoulder and say, don't lose faith. We can make this together. I think that's an important point that participant is also raising.
Yeah. You want to look at how you manage change at Massy?
Yeah, you know, change management has been a huge thing for us, Jackie, and you know, there are some persons who have not been as diligent. I know in your context, You might have some major recommendations around that. I think having a change plan is
Yeah.
always important. The Maxwell likes to say, those who fail to plan to fail. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and 1 minute spent in planning saves 10 minutes in execution. Our
Mm-hmm.
approach to change, even though times are dynamic, cannot just be ad hoc. It must be structured. We must determine what our communication plan is, who we need to be communicating to, what we need to be communicating, how we need to
Mm-hmm.
communicate, the style of communication. One of the things that we have, for example, been contemplating as a leadership team is,
Mm-hmm.
as we seek to engage the team now, how do we ensure that we can find a way to make sure our team have the details in terms of
Mm-hmm.
dealing with change? You said it well, Jackie. All kinds of things are happening in the business.
Yes. How do you ensure that your team members understand and your external parties understand what is happening? So Massy has gone, and I want Rohan to continue with that as soon as he's back on. But there's something I want to bring up, which has been very important for the change processes that I've seen and I've been involved with. The issues that people go through and why they go through these issues with change. Because most people do not like change. Whether they're leaders, whether they're team members, change is extremely difficult. And I know at the end of this COVID crisis, many of our organizations are going to have to change how we operate, what we do, how we do it. So we might want to start looking at that change process now. What is it going to look like? And that is why we mentioned in the very beginning that the team, that putting together the transition team, and I would call it, there's a transition or a change team or whatever you want to call it. But this is a team that's going to identify where you are, where you want to go, and kind of come up with some of the what ifs. What are the issues that you're likely to face? And do a survey among your team right now. Where are they? You want to know where your team is at. How do they feel? Why are they having difficulties if they are? And how do they see the organization in a couple of years? How do they see themselves in the organization? So what I call some mistakes that I've seen in any transformation is that we assume that we know where our people are at. We assume we know what the shareholders want. We assume that the market is what it is. We assume that we have a particular share of the market. We assume that our clients will stay with us forever. We assume that competition will not come to our doors, and we assume that we will be around forever. So I know that Rohan, you want to pick up there.
Yeah, those are major things. In a change plan, Jackie, part of what you want to think about is what are your assumptions, and to make sure
Yeah,
that you're testing your assumptions. Because
yeah,
again, because change is by nature changing. In other words, not even change itself is, change is constant, but the kind of change is itself subject to change. I think it's
yeah,
important to make your change plan a living document, because managing change is a daily activity. It's not something that you document and kind of just put down and execute. It's something that you need to continue to look at, continue to examine, to make sure that the plan that you established 2 weeks ago is still relevant today. And I like the point you made. That's why you have to be constantly engaging uh, team members, constantly engaging external parties, constantly engaging all stakeholders to figure out, what is the best approach to managing what obviously is difficult. And you're right, nobody likes change. Change is never easy, but the idea of being very deliberate in managing change is important. It cannot be just a matter of, kind of just whim and fancy. It must be a structured change management program that finds its substance in deep consultation, deep understanding of the organization and its capabilities, and deep understanding of the where the organization may have some lack and may have some some areas that needs attention. Put that kind of structure around managing change, change can
Yeah.
begin to manage you, and you don't want that. You want to be able to not allow the organization to be overcome by the vagaries of the situations in the marketplace or indeed in the world. So I think contacting experts, subject matter experts, being able to uh, pull on talents within your organization and outside is always very useful. I feel it's always a very useful thing to contact persons outside of your organization to get guidance and get support, because there are people who have been in circumstances in other places that maybe have a little more knowledge than you do, and it's always wise to access those persons. Would say don't reinvent the wheel.
Mm, mm. What do you think about the leader developing himself? I mean, networking, being part of associations, as you said earlier, they need to know, be in contact with other persons outside. So, how would you address that? Being part of a, networking organization, as business association, how would that help?
Absolutely. Those things are very, very helpful. And some of us do it better than others. But there's no doubt that this idea of staying connected to people is important. We know the song "No Man is an Island, No Man Stands Alone," and that is true for organizational leaders and business leaders. All of us are in this fight together, and there may be insights that you can get from interacting with others, and it's always wise to pull on the benefit of business organizations. Right now, several of these business organizations are having meetings with the intention of exchanging ideas. Some of that is happening online. It's a powerful time, Jackie, to build ourselves as leaders so that we can
Mhm.
manage transformation that our organization must undergo.
Yeah, yeah. But how do we know? I mean, how does the manager or the leader know whether he's being successful? The issues of technology. Eh? Yes, but so we've spoken about measuring. How do we measure? How do we recognize whether or not we're being successful? And we're seem to be, I don't know if it's a bandwidth issue, but we're tripping in and out. I have a question, Tanisha. Encouraging partners to spend time to plan. We have a question. Encouraging partners to spend time to plan, refurbish, and retool, especially our hotels and food establishment. That I'm in agreement with Tanisha. It's a good time for us to um, refurbish, retool, reassess our processes, and that is how a leader adds value. You might be down now, but you need to be preparing. As I know, a number of our hotels are Sandals has confirmed that they'll be doing that with some of their hotels. So it's a good time to reassess where you are, and that is the what we spoke about earlier. How do you look at your systems and your processes? So you might not have a building, but do you need to be investing more in technology? Do you need to be investing more in your people? You might not be open now. You might not have enough clients now, but should you be training your team for the new dispensation? Um, do you need to be procuring a new machine if you're going into a new product? Do you need to be selling some of what you have? Because that might be part of the plan that you're coming out of certain kinds of businesses. Do you want to reassess your your rental arrangement now? Should you be renting a property, or can you really work from home? Should you be buying a building because of the new services that you're going into? But it is correct that you should be looking at all the areas and being deliberate about how you spend your time. What are you planning on? It's not business as usual, and that is how a leader gives value to any process. So the leader has to be giving ideas. If you're in the organization, it's not about just being at home and I'm told to go home and manage a team. What are you bringing to the table to ensure that that organization bounces back quickly, and the organization, the profits are going to be increasing, or certainly to maintain where they are now. But the idea is for you to bring a lot of value and bring change.
Jackie, I want to just mention something that you just raised, build on
Yeah.
something that you just raised. The idea of making decisions in the context, because the truth is, and it's a difficult thing, in the context where revenue is less and the
Yeah.
numbers are threatened, you
Yeah.
sometimes run away from investing. And
Yeah.
I feel you made a powerful point. Part of the evaluation that has to be made is that despite what is happening now, do I operate simply based on what is happening now, or do I
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to what can happen tomorrow and prepare for tomorrow? Because, even though we're in the middle of COVID, there is life after COVID. And we have to make sure that we are making the investments into the
Right.
future to ensure that we can, when we go through this, we can, experience the benefit of that on the next side of COVID. And I think that's an important point
Mm.
just to contemplate in terms of how they treat their opportunities today.
Right. There's a question I have. Make change a plan a living document. That's what I have a question here. Make change plan a living document. You want to expand on that?
Oh, so the idea there is, the concept of a living document, Jackie, means it's not just a document that you prepare and leave. It means that it's something you're constantly reviewing, constantly updating, and that you allow to be part and parcel of how you approach the management of your organization. In other words, if all you have is a document that is on file 13, then it's of little value. It must be a document that you're constantly reviewing, constantly updating, and constantly utilizing.
Right, right. You want to touch back on the measuring? How do you know, how does a leader know that he's being successful in managing this transformation?
Well, I think a big part of it has to do with what are the targets and goals that you establish for yourself, and how the targets and goals are measured. So, in other words, in my mind, uh, Jackie, and I can get a comment from you on this. I think the issue of establishing milestones, establishing goals, establishing targets, some people could say transformational targets. These are the things we want to achieve, and we establish the SMART goals. We're specific, we're measuring it, we know it's attainable, it's realistic, and we set a time to achieve it. That
Mm-hmm.
once you have clear targets, that's the way to approach it. Once you know what transformation looks like, and once you're clear about what you want to be different, what you want to remain the same, what you want to do away with altogether, once you're clear about the mix of your objectives, then it becomes easier to assess whether those are being achieved or not. Somebody said that if you're aiming at nothing, you're going to hit it with amazing accuracy. And
Right.
that is also, if you're aiming at something specifically, then you will know whether you are achieving it or not achieving it.
And our last question to you. How do you keep your staff motivated and going above and beyond what's being asked? Because I know Massy Gas and you have new products that have just come on the market. So, how do you do that? How do you keep them motivated? What have you been doing? Anything special? Any tips you have for our leaders who are looking at keeping everybody motivated and going above and beyond the call of duty?
Jackie, I could sit here and list a number of things, but I
Yeah.
think above everything else, I believe that idea of engagement is critical, because again, in a technical sense, the idea of an engaged staff is exactly that, a staff that is able to go above and beyond. Now, let's be clear, that's never an easy job, and I would be foolhardy to suggest that it's something easy, because again, people are people, and leading people is always a complex and tough job.
We want to look at celebrating the successes, and I'm going to ask Rohan to speak about that as soon as he comes back on. But we don't celebrate enough as a people with the successes, whether small or big, and we need to be looking more at how do we celebrate. And it's not about the amount of money that we spend, but it's how we do it. How do we know that we've been successful? How the small steps. We need to be deliberate about that as being part of our plan. If we achieve X, how do we celebrate? Who will do it? How do we decide on what kind of celebration we'll have? And it goes back to how do we engage our team? And as leaders, I know many of us are having a difficult time now to motivate our staff and just to say to our shareholders and our executives, what is my worth and how am I going to contribute to this? But I'm saying to you that it's not as difficult as we believe, if we think we have done our best. And that's important for us to look at the goals we've set for ourselves, what's the vision, mission of the organization, what kind of strategy do we have, and how is that working at this time? What is important though is that if your organization has not yet looked at reworking their strategy within this dispensation, you might be wanting to encourage that. Sit down with the board, because you don't want to be just fighting fires because we're in COVID. What are the opportunities that exist now that you would want to be crafting a new strategic document and looking at the vision and mission of the organization? And as leaders, you want to be leading that. And your department, does your department have its own vision and mission? How does it fit into the bigger organizational strategy? I believe those are also some areas that our leaders are a bit weak on. We believe that we don't need to have our own department or portfolio vision and mission, which is a part of the larger organizational strategy. Do we have any other questions, persons who are asking questions? Because we will also take questions offline. Even after we have finished this evening, you can send the questions to info@makeyourmarkconsultants.com, and we'll be willing to do that. I know that Rohan is also willing to take any questions we have offline. Rohan, are you hearing me?
I am hearing you, Jackie.
Good. So you want to just pick up from the area of keeping your team going above and beyond?
Yes, I think the issue of being close to your team and building relationships, genuine relationships, is always key. If persons are committed to the purpose of the organization, and I wanted to add that the mission and vision is important, but that deep sense of purpose is always something that I find, once somebody feels that, I am doing meaningful work that makes a difference, I find that that's something that can always be very, very motivational. And it's important to invest in relating to people in a way that people connect with the organization beyond the paycheck. As important as the paycheck is, and as important all the other benefits that you bring to people are, I think it's important to bring this sense of purpose. And as you rightly said, Jackie, this issue of celebrating all the time. Celebrate people, celebrate even small accomplishments, because again, encouragement always sweetens labor, and we want to give a lot of encouragement now so that the labor of our people can be sweet. And when we do that, we will find that our people will do more than we think that they would otherwise do. And I believe it's something that as leaders, whether departmental, whether unit leaders, whether at the organizational level, it's important to make sure that we are celebrating. And this goes right up to the level of the board, right through to the person on the plant floor making the contribution. Find every opportunity you can to celebrate people's contribution and to celebrate the organizational accomplishments, however small.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I thank Rohan Ambersley, CEO of Massy Gas, for joining us. I know we had some technical glitches, but as leaders, we rise to the occasion and we must keep it going.
That's right.
We have to. This is what's going to happen in our lives, and we're in the time now where we have to roll and we have to make things happen despite what's around us. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next Thursday, where we'll be looking at how is it that the leader continues to lead, even though when he's fearful, he or she, they're fearful. You're fearful for yourself and your own jobs and your own lives. So thank you, Rohan. If you have any last words.
Yes, Jackie, thank you so much. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have shared with you. I want to close on the point you just made. That in the midst of life, there are challenges, but the mettle of the person will be found in how we respond to those challenges. I think it was Martin Luther King who said something, and I'm paraphrasing, that the measure of a man is not where he stands when things are going well, but where he stands
Exactly.
in the midst of difficulties. And I just want to encourage everyone, continue to keep strong, continue to trust God, and let us pull
Yeah.
on each other and find a way to make things work, because we can overcome. And in the midst of
Yeah.
these challenges, we can still do well. Let's just support each other, and let's
Yeah.
do our best to offer meaningful leadership to those we share life with.
Yes, indeed, Rohan. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, the bounce back is going to come in restoration. So have a good evening, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. All the best.
You too.